Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Today, we're going to go over the hypocrisy of the United States when it comes to the Black community. So, first of all, this country professes to be a Christian nation. Since they profess that, one would assume that they follow the laws and statutes of the Bible from God and the teachings of the Messiah, who the world calls Jesus. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go down the 10 commandments. And after I complete this, you decide, is the United States actually true to what they try to profess, or are they hypocrites? Most of us already know the answer to that based on their actions. But for those of you who don't, maybe this will change your ideology. Now, for starters, the first commandment says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," which is interesting because we're in a nation that publicizes a different image of what God really is. And really, the majority of people don't read the Bible because a lot of the questions most people have will be answered just from reading the Bible. Now, we're in a country that one particular community acts like they're the bloodline of God Himself. So when it comes to Black people, they place themselves on a pedestal as if they're on a throne right beside God. Now, if those of you who read the Bible understand everything that's in it, or the majority of things that's in it, you will realize that in Revelation chapter 4, verse 3, the Bible says the one who sits on the throne has the image of a jasper or a sardine stone. How many of you have actually observed a jasper stone or a sardine stone? If you haven't, I'm going to show you because it's important for you to see this. So, this is a jasper stone, or I'm sorry, a sardine stone. Now, notice the complexion of it. Now, look at my complexion. Are you starting to see some things here? So, basically, when it comes to the image of who everyone calls God, but even that's not his name, that's simply a title. Who everyone calls God, his name is actually Yahuwah, or Yah for short. So, is this country really following the laws and statutes of God himself? Let's go to the next commandment. It says you should not have any graven images. Now, this is real where the hypocrisy really stands out. Because how many churches have we all been in where you see all these statues of the Messiah on the cross in some denominations? You see the angels from heaven. You see the statue of Mary. You see all these different statues of different people or beings from either heaven or earth. But yet, this is a Christian nation. So, shouldn't they know that by having these statues that's wrong in the eyes of who they call God? If you have any kind of statue in your home that's a carved out image of anything that's either in heaven or earth, that's wrong. You're breaking the commandment. But see, the way this country teaches you, you're indoctrinated so you don't see it. And then some people will even read that in the Bible with the commandment that says no graven images, and they'll still dismiss it because the majority of us have been indoctrinated. Now, some have the pleasure of waking up and being able to see all of that, which changes your complete outlook on everything. And we still have those that are still blind that feel as though they're still self righteous and they feel as though they're right, even though the Bible proves otherwise. So now we go to you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Okay, so first of all, that's not even the way that it was written originally. It should really say, thou shalt not take the name of Yahuwah your Elohim in vain. But you see, we have Bible scholars that decided that Yahuwah was too holy to mention by, I guess, common folk. So they changed the name. But I guess they didn't read that part in the Bible that condemns people who add to the Bible or take away from it. Meaning that if you manipulate and change the Bible to how you want it to be read, then you have a judgment coming. So, how does this relate to Black people? You put this in all of our books. You indoctrinated these pastors that's in our churches that a lot of people in our community look up to. And, all of this is just plain lies. So, not only did you change his name, but you changed his image because it was Pope Alexander. I don't remember which number, but he's the one who changed the image of the Messiah himself. You see, his son's name was Cesare Borgia, and Cesare Borgia was in a relationship with Leonardo da Vinci. So it was Leonardo da Vinci that painted this image of this blonde, blue eyed individual when all you have to do is read the Bible and understand that the real Messiah didn't not have that image like that. He looked more like myself in complexion, or people are going to say that I'm wrong. Didn't the Bible say that the Messiah had hair like wool? Now, there's going to be some people that are going to manipulate that and say that the Bible said his hair was white like wool. Well, it didn't. But see, this is the indoctrination that we go through. And I'm going to point out something near the end of this because there was even prophecy saying that the true children would wake up in the land of their captivity, meaning that the true children aren't in the land that was promised to their forefathers because we're being punished because our forefathers broke the law numerous times. So we were under constant chastisement. We're still in chastisement. At this point, we're in exile. So that's why we have to be in this land where people that don't look like us, not all, are very hostile towards us and very hateful towards us. But it wasn't the Black community that changed the image of the Messiah or God himself. And again, all you have to do is read the Bible and understand that the image that all of you think that he has, it's a false image. Then we go to number 4, keep the Sabbath day holy. Doesn't the Bible say that God rested on the seventh day? So I want you to go to your calendars, even pull up the calendar on your phone, and tell me what the first day is on your calendar for the week. I'll wait. So does the Bible say the Sabbath was the first day, or did it say it was the seventh day? And that's just basic math. So isn't Saturday the seventh day? How come the majority of you have not called this out? It's very obvious that Saturday is the Sabbath. And then, when you read through the Bible and you understand what an actual day is by the Bible's definition, it's from sundown to sundown. So it's not from midnight to midnight like we're made to believe now. What I believe part of the reason was behind that is to make it uniform each day, because each day sundown is at a different time. So in the summer, sundown could be after 8 o'clock. And in the winter, sundown can be shortly after 4 o'clock. So you see the times change each day. And for everyone to keep track of the time each day begins and ends, you have to know ahead of time what it would be that day. And since this is the information age now, that shouldn't be a problem. Either that or you get the almanac and look at that to see what time the sun is going to go down. That's not a hard thing to do in the information age. But going back to the Sabbath, many of you don't realize that the English language is one of the youngest languages in the world. So, how many of you are familiar with Spanish? Tell me what the name of Saturday is, and just think Sabbath before you say it. For those of you who don't know, the name for Saturday is Sábado. Kind of sounds a lot like Sabbath, doesn't it? You see, the answers are right in front of our face, but again, in these nations that we're raised in, we're indoctrinated from the very beginning. Just to go off subject, we're actually better off being homeschooled than we are going to these facilities that just indoctrinate us. Because what that's doing is holding us back from fulfilling our full potential. But let's go to number 5. Honor thy mother and thy father. So it's this country that, for one, people try to say that the Black community has no discipline, but we actually do. I can't speak for Generation Z or younger, but as Gen X, we we definitely have discipline. And all you have to do is be within the Black household to realize that most Black children really show a lot of respect for their parents, because one, our parents jumped in our collar when we stepped out of line. Even just a dirty look back could get you catching a backhand or receiving a belt. And that's how we were disciplined. So there was always that fear of the parents because of that act alone. So the majority of Black children stayed in line when it came to their parents. And it wasn't until that kind of treatment was outlawed that then you see a difference in our community's discipline. We started becoming more like the people who oppressed us rather than staying in line with our culture. Because I can tell you, I've witnessed people outside of the Black community get with their parents verbally and nothing happened to them. And, you know, most of us from the Black community are just going to kind of look like, you getting away with that? Hmm. It's like if I even thought that, it wouldn't be good. And also, I'm going to point out something else. This is probably going to strike a nerve with some people, but as a whole, when our parents become ill, we don't put them in a nursing home. The majority of us don't. It's a stigma. And that's just our culture, because we look at the 10 Commandments and see honor thy mother and thy father. So just putting somebody in a facility just so you don't have to be bothered with them, that doesn't go over well for the majority of us. And that's why you'll also see, if there's someone ill that's one of our parents, a lot of times the child will either bring them to live with them, or they'll come back and move in with them so they have somebody else that's there to keep them safe and secure. Now, the next one, I'm really going to point out the hypocrisy in this. So, sixth commandment, thou shalt not unalive anyone. I'm just going to say it that way. Now, all you have to do is look at how we've been treated in this country for the last 400 years as a whole. Look at how many times we've been unalived without even doing anything. Just from existing, we've been unalived, and people will lie and say that they felt threatened by us, or they saw us do something, so they called themselves implementing their own justice on us, which is false. Look at how that young brother in Georgia, just from simply jogging, was gunned down by two slimy individuals. And jogging was his regular routine, but they decided that they were going to implement their own justice, even though he did nothing wrong, and he was unalived. Look at Trayvon Martin, and the person who unalived him sold the tool he used to unalive Trayvon for, I believe it was $140,000. He opened up a GoFundMe where he raised $200,000. And then on top of that, he tried to sue the parents of Trayvon because he claimed they gave false testimony, and he tried to sue them for $1 million. That surprisingly was thrown out. But look at the people that thought unaliving us was justified by him raising $200,000, and he was the one in the wrong. Look at how Sandra Bland was mysteriously just unalived, and she shouldn't have been locked up to begin with, because all she did was refuse to put out her cigarette in her own vehicle. And, some of these races have such thin skin. They just take offense to when you stand your ground. But yet we have laws that stand your ground, and it's taken completely out of context. So if somebody else stands their ground, they're in the right no matter what. Look at the parties that this country used to have with unaliving our community. And I'm not going to go into detail because of this platform, but some of you know what I'm talking about. Look at how, even though the person in our community was wrong by stealing something, look at how that officer unalived him in the back. And that's a no-no in law enforcement, because someone with their back to you poses no threat because they're trying to get away. And you see him try to plant the taser by his foot, trying to make it seem like he got a hold of his taser, so he felt as though he had no choice. You see all sorts of things in this country. People have done stuff like that and have gotten away with it up until the invention of the cell phone with the camera on it. And even that doesn't stop them. People know there's a camera phone, and yet they still will do whatever they feel as though they're going to do, because they don't think anything's going to happen to them. And that's nothing but pure arrogance, but it's also the indoctrination in this country. Because there's people that feel superior to us, so they feel as though they can cast the judgment of God themselves in his place and think that they're going to be deemed as being righteous. And that's the furthest from the truth. And speaking of truth, no, I'm not going to get to that one yet, but thou shalt not commit adultery. So I'm really going to go in on this one. So, for those of you who think you're so superior to us and think you can do anything you want to us, let me just point out the fact that taking another man's wife, whether they're working for you or not, and forcing yourself on them, that's adultery. Doesn't matter if you're labeled as a servant or a slave, that's adultery. Now, all of you know what I'm getting at. And it's because of that type of adultery is why we have so many different shades within the Black community now. Judgment is coming on this country for things like that. And then because they are your offspring, you make them think because of their complexion that they're better than those of us that's darker. So you implemented this division that still plagues our community. Some of you still go off the 300-year-old book, the Willie Lynch letter, and still use the same tactics on that. And then some of you will commit adultery with our community forcefully. And then when the man is there to check you, you unalive him too. So the evidence is still relevant. We still have very lighter complected individuals within our community that they have no control over that because some of you decided that you were going to take our women and force yourself upon them with no consent whatsoever. But this is supposed to be a Christian nation, and yet you think that the sixth commandment doesn't, I'm sorry, the seventh commandment doesn't apply to you? In the 10 commandments, did they say there was any exceptions to that? They didn't. And some of you will say, even as I'm saying this, oh, well, that wasn't me who did that. That was my ancestor. Well, you better think about how many generations you are from that ancestor, because the Bible says that the sins of the father will be passed on to the third and fourth generation. So where does that put you at? You guys don't think. You're so wrapped up in your self-righteousness, you don't even have the intelligence to see that you're breaking the commandments too, and you're going to get judged for it. Because many people within my community have prayed against you, and we still do. And ever since 2019, more of our prayers has started becoming answered, slowly but surely. So then we go to the eighth commandment. Thou shalt not steal. Now, some of you are going to say, oh, well, we got you on there. No, you don't. Because, first of all, you can steal people too. So we were stolen from the land that we resided at or have migrated to. And then you kidnap us, stack us on top of each other, and then bring us to this country. If you had just treated us as indentured servants, your judgment wouldn't be as harsh as it's going to be. But you dehumanized us based off of skin color. And the other thing is, you knew we were in exile by God himself. So you took it upon yourselves to take us from the land we migrated to. I can't even say it was our homeland, because if you know our real heritage or our true nationality, you would understand what I'm saying by that. And I'll get into that at a different time. Then, here in the United States, you stole the land from the Native Americans, and you spilled innocent blood of the Native Americans on this land. So you already cursed the land. You already got the wheels turning for judgment to be handed down to this country. And the thing is, you still do it. And more countries are getting fed up because you keep trying to bully everyone. And the same goes for your allies, too. You gave the Native Americans blankets with smallpox on them so you could unalive their population. And then, even though you sat down with them to have a feast, you changed the time of when certain events happen because you unalive the Native Americans in mass abundance. Then you declared it a day of Thanksgiving. But people knew that wasn't going to sound right. So then you concocted this thing where, oh, the pilgrims sat with the Native Americans and they had peace. And yeah, they did that in the beginning, but that's not what actually happened in the end. You mass unalived them and stole their land. And every treaty that this country had with the Native Americans, you broke every last one of them. I want to say it was like either 300 or 400 and something treaties. I don't remember the exact number, but I know it was up there. So, again, is this a Christian nation that follows the Bible? We all know the answer at this point. But let's go to the next one. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Emmett Till seems to come to mind with that. And that still happens. You still have people that lie on us so that we can either be unalived or thrown in jail. And isn't that what happened with the Central Park Five? You bear false witness against them and then intimidated them to admit to it, even though they were all innocent. But that was the New York Police Department, and that was their DA that was behind that. DA or assistant DA. Look at how many black men have been falsely accused of something from females that were not in the black community that yelled a certain thing, even though it was consensual. But in the end, when they were caught, then they yelled a certain thing, which a lot of times ended in us being unalived. Was that right to happen? Look at how many jobs and managers will bear false witness against black employees, try to get them terminated, or to lie and say that they're a troublemaker or they have an attitude. All these little racial innuendos. And you think nothing's going to happen to you? That's why so many of you, stuff happens to you out the clear blue and you have no idea what happened, but it's because of the lies you've told on us. You still think you're right. A lot of you haven't repented and you never will repent because you think you're in the right. Because unfortunately, some of you are the victims of bad parenting. So you were falsely told that you're superior when you're clearly not. Because really, if you were superior, you wouldn't worry about us at all. You would just ignore us. And a number of you can't even do that. I mean, even on this channel alone, some of you already realize that this platform or this channel is for the black community, and you still will implement your own little 2 cents into everything as if you have any relevance. And I'm actually going to listen to you. I'm not. Then there's the last one. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. You know what's interesting? There's people in this country that got a 400-year lead on us. And because we're catching up, you worry about every little thing that we have and wonder, how did we get this? How did we get that? How did we get that? Let me point out something to you. There's scripture that says, who you call God will raise us up in the lands of our captivity. So what do you think that meant? It means some of the curses that we're under that was holding us back is slowly starting to raise up and is starting to go on to you now because of how you treated us. So it's the reason why we can be in certain neighborhoods, have a brand new car, and members outside of our community will vandalize it out of jealousy, coveting thy neighbor's goods. How did he get that? How did she get that? And then, some of these fake managers, when some of us have a vehicle that's nicer than them, oh, well, if you're driving a car like that, we're paying you too much. Okay. I can tell you right now that there's a manager at my job that my home is basically the same size as his, except I'm single with my home. So all of it is mine. I didn't have to split a salary with somebody else to get it, which is the reason why this individual is attacking me. And I see clearly through it. He too will be judged. So I'm not worried about it. So after all of that, I ask you, is the United States everything that it says it is with being the Christian nation, or is that a lie and there's just nothing but pure hypocrisy? You decide. But I can tell you my answer. It's a hypocrite nation.